It's called Moree, and it's a reusable packaging that helps food companies switch to reusable packaging. We provide companies with a whole system of reusable packaging, making it easy for them to switch away from single-use packaging. Claire and I started working together 14 years ago as innovation engineers in the food industry, helping different supermarkets, food producers, and restaurants develop more sustainable products and services. Now, we've worked with really big companies like Sainsbury's, McDonald's, Marks and Spencer's, and Coca-Cola. And over these years, our clients kept asking us, what can we do about our packaging? Their customers are fed up of plastic. Governments are introducing different laws and regulations about packaging and waste. And packaging prices have just gone through the roof recently. The food brands are actually desperate to be more sustainable, but there is no easy solution for them out there. And this is where we saw a gap in the market and decided to start Moree.
So there are three key pillars in our system. Firstly, there's our innovative flat pack packaging design, which is durable, washable, and can be reused over 300 times. Secondly, easy returns. We've tested different ways of getting customers to return their packaging. And the thing that customers prefer is posting it back in a prepaid envelope. And finally, return systems need incentives. Instead of charging people deposits, we're developing an app that rewards them for fast returns. So here's how we make money. Our main revenue stream is selling our reusable packaging to brands. Once their customers return it to us, we wash it and we sell it over and over and over again. The postage and washing actually costs less than producing new packaging, so our profits increase with every sale. And because we're building a community of passionate green customers, we will be able to charge brands in order for their customers to reach all of those brands. Brands will also pay for data about the amount of plastic and carbon they're saving, and they need this for their ESG reporting, and that is gold dust as well for their marketing.
So the market for the fast-moving consumer goods packaging is actually huge. It's $1 trillion market, but interestingly, reusable packaging is the fastest growing segment with around 11% annual growth. Now, since starting last year, we've had around £100,000 in grant and equity funding to kickstart the pilots. And we're currently testing our system with several brands in London. Now, we've developed and tested the mail return logistics, and we've built an MVP version of our tracking system, which actually uses QR codes to track the packaging, where it is in the cycle, and how many times it's been reused. And during these pilots, we've tested and built over 100 different prototypes, tested them with 50 paying customers, which really helped us define the design spec, the material, and the features that it needs. And our current designs cater for dry goods like coffee, granola, and pasta. Now, this is
1 minute warning.
This is what we have right now, but our vision is much bigger. We plan to use our engineering expertise to expand the packaging range and cover the entire grocery basket. We will work with retailers to make it as easy and convenient for the end customers to buy in Moree packaging. And speaking of convenience, we actually want to make it easy for them to return the packaging as well. So we're developing an infrastructure around reuse. Now imagine that next to your general bin and your recycling bins, you also have a smart bin for dropping off your Moree packaging, which is collected on a weekly basis, taken for washing and redistribution. And to tie it all together, we're building a reward scheme to include digital tokens that will help turn waste into valuable assets. So we have a big vision, but we're staying at quite grounded and taking one step at a time. So we are now raising £250,000 to produce our first batch of packaging, to build the customer app and the rewards plan, and to launch Moree in the UK with the first 25 brands. And we've already received £100,000 from a lead investor and also some match funding from a UK green tech grant. And we're looking to close the round
up
with 150K. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, guys. It's certainly an original pitch with the start. Let me bring in our investors. Hopefully no one was listening just via audio. Otherwise that was a little interesting, but let's get everybody in here. One question I have while I'm pulling everyone in. do they have to have these recyclable bins? I thought the system also works as well through the post. It's going to be very hard if you need to get people to put the bins into different locations.
Absolutely, yeah. So no, right now the system works only through the postal bag system. So we provide them with a return label, and they send it back in a small envelope. So it's really easy to just put it back in the post box. You don't really have to go to a special return point. You don't have to use any bins. You don't have to go to any post office and wait in the queue. Put it in an envelope and put it through the post box. The bit about the bins is our vision for the future, to build a whole infrastructure to make it really mainstream and get it alongside your recycling bin. You would have a Moree reuse bin where you drop off the packaging. That's future vision.
Yeah, we're seeing that, there's a big increase in this returnable packaging market, but it's really in its infancy. So we're looking ahead 3 or 4 years to the moment when people are becoming more accustomed to the notion of returning their packaging. So it will become a little bit more of a common gesture, the idea that you would send your packaging back. And at that moment, we have several councils who are very keen to engage with us, because they are all trying to find ways of tackling the waste burden. So we've been working with different councils in London who are all interested in seeing how this might help them going forwards.
Okay, understood. I certainly see it with the mailbox, but having to put in the systems, if there's going to be a bunch of reuse return packaging companies that don't have their own system, I think it'll clog up the system even more, so to speak. Yeah. Looks like you wanted to say something, Aaron?
Yeah, no, just on the note of the returning the packaging, have you done any sort of consumer surveys or seen what that kind of adoption is like today?
Yeah, so we spent about 6 months with a live pilot with about 50 customers, where we were supplying them with groceries to check, because our first question that we needed to test was, will people really return their packaging? And what was really surprising to us, but really positive and made us very hopeful, was that we saw pretty much 100% return rate. And we wanted to find out, we run surveys and a bit of customer observation, and we wanted to find out what is the easiest way for customers to do this. And overwhelmingly, customers preferred to post it back. We also had a couple of customers even bring the packaging back to us. So we've also seen through our surveys that customers, the one thing that they associate with when you ask them about sustainability and grocery shopping, they talk about packaging and plastic. It's the one thing that is tangible for customers, and actually people are super keen to be doing the right thing, and they are prepared to make a little bit of effort in order to make that right thing happen.
Okay. And then just one other thing on the washing and return. So you mentioned that the washing and return costs less than producing new plastic.
Yes.
Is that when you guys reach scale, or is that right now? Because that's quite a
yeah, there is a moment. Of course, right now we're running a few pilots, and our numbers are quite small. But if you imagine, for example, that we can wash about 250 pieces of packaging in one wash load. So unlike many of the other reusable packaging systems, our washing is done in a washing machine rather than a dishwasher. So a dishwasher has very limited capacity because every unit is basically taking up space. In a washing machine, we can fit a lot more packaging. So the washing is really negligible when we're at scale. And the return postage, the packaging is generally posted back, not in a single way, but in, customers would be posting back 5 or 6 or even 10 pieces of packaging together. So we can, in the UK, we can post back as a large letter, which has quite a high weight limit, and it has I think a 2.5 centimeter thickness limit. So we can actually fit quite a lot of packaging in one envelope. And there are other companies we know that are doing this already, like the Bauer Collective, where they're also, it's a question of explaining to customers a little bit about how to organize the packaging within the envelope so that it stays within that thickness.
But that's the main uniqueness about what we're doing, is that the packaging is flat pack, and that it can fit in an envelope, and it's soft, so it can be washed in a washing machine. It's more like a pouch rather than a solid container, and those are the two main things about our actual product innovation.
I mean, in theory, could you get rid of the envelope and just have the product itself be shippable with a stamp on it?
Yeah, so we are actually testing something exactly like that, where the packaging becomes the envelope, and this works particularly well in a B2B2B scenario where our clients are using quite large packaging because they're sending out to businesses, and we've been testing that in the sense that so for example, we're sending out a 5 kilo bag. They are sending out a 5 kilo bag of coffee. And the size of that pouch means that they can put all of their pouches together inside one pouch, and that's got a return envelope, a return label on it with a stamp, and it gets pre-posted back to us with all the packaging inside. So we are testing that. It's coming back consistently intact, and the post office is okay with it. It seems to work, and that is one of our USPs is to make that packaging also into an envelope if possible.
Can I jump into a question? I mean, as you say yourself, there's quite a lot of companies out there trying to do what you do. And when I speak to those type of companies, the feedback is that they run into challenges on adoption from the brands, that having a uniform or a standardized look or container or packaging material sort of defeats the purpose a little bit of setting your brand apart on the retail shelf.
Okay.
Money is sort of invested into standing out and being different and not uniform. Some companies even go to the extent of protecting the container they have their goods in. How are you tackling that issue in terms of customer adoption?
Well, actually, our packaging it arrives to our customer, and they apply their own label. So it's very personalized by each of our brand customers. And then when it comes back, the
shape of the container is the same for all brands.
Well, if you think about coffee packaging, all coffee comes in the same identical pouch. It has, usually if you buy very high-end coffee, you'll see that it has maybe a compostable pouch with a sticker of the brand on it. And our packaging will do the same thing. And actually, I think it's one of our strengths that our packaging is universal. So we don't have, one type of packaging has to go to one brand. Our packaging will go to all the brands who buy into this. And I think that will become something of a positive rather than a negative.
It's kind of a universal system, but that is customizable by the brands with their labels.
It could be great, especially for just grocery stores that white label their own stuff, because they all have their own brands. But then you could also eliminate the whole shipping deal because people are coming into the store anyways, and they could just drop it off.
Yep.
Exactly. That's the future of the drop-off bins. It is about having that drop-off point in the place where it's also sold. And that is sometime into the future, but definitely where we have to go with this. So customers will have that option of either using the post or using a drop-off point in their retail store.
How do you compare sort of a life cycle assessment in relative to biodegradable packaging, for example?
So biodegradable packaging is not the star of the week. Lots of companies that are highly sustainable are currently ditching it because they have recently, there's a lot of research which has showed that what is described as compostable packaging is not really compostable at all. It breaks down over time into tiny fragments, but it never fully composts. And so companies like Able & Cole, for example, have put out an announcement about a month ago saying they're not using compostable packaging anymore because it's in a life cycle assessment. It comes off actually worse than if you count, other things apart from carbon. Then this kind of packaging is really not doing what it should do. And there's been a big backlash on literally in the last month and a half. Lots of research identifying that compostable packaging actually almost never ends up in the compost bin. It usually ends up in a general waste bin where it is doubly wasted because it's actually causing more of a problem in landfill or in energy from waste plants. And this is a big problem. If you're a company that wants to show that you're doing the right thing and this comes out that your packaging is actually not so sustainable, then this is a big worry for a company like Able & Cole. They're desperate to find a system that is truly sustainable. And our product comes out really well on a life cycle analysis because after between 4 and 7 cycles, we become carbon neutral. And so if we're then going on to 300 uses or even more, obviously that our packaging is going to fare really well against a traditional single-use packaging, super well.
How are you carbon neutral? Something's being created.
Yeah, that is true. We do have a packaging, but it is once we have used our packaging 4 to 7 times, we have used up the same amount of carbon as a company would be using if they used single-use packaging 4 to 7 times. Does that make sense? So there's
Okay.
a carbon impact, but it stops after 7. You know, it cancels itself out. It's not neutral in itself, but it cancels itself out compared to single-use packaging.
Understood. Like a carbon payback period. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the expression I need to use. Carbon payback period.
How do you scale? Everybody's trying to do the same thing. How do you guys win?
Well, we win because we have started quite early. We were one of the first companies that we know of who's doing what we're doing. We have a very unique selling point because we have a flat pack packaging, which is much cheaper to return and to wash. And we feel like we're ahead of the game right now. And we've also done a lot of work directly with customers, which puts us in a very good position to understand you know, how this works and how it works for people, and what the barriers are from a customer perspective of actually doing this. And we really want customers to feel like they're getting packaging which is exactly the same as when they buy a packet now from the shops. It does the same thing, they use it in the same way. The only one difference is they just post it back afterwards instead of putting it.
Yeah, one of the biggest friction points with our competitors has always been the returns, and it's mainly because they all use solid containers, and those solid containers are very difficult to return. You have to order a collection from like a DPD or Hermes courier. You have to leave a big box outside of your door when they collect it. So it's a bit of a hassle, or you have to take it off yourself to the drop-off point. So those are the main friction points. And actually, Tesco in the UK was doing a similar pilot with a company called Loop, which had beautiful containers, but you had to take them back to the store yourself. They were bulky, they were heavy, they were expensive, so they required a high deposit on them. And those are the main friction points. It's around this circularity, around the return. And we've solved that with our flat pack design and the lightweight and the low cost of the packaging itself as well.